Good morning, Scott Handback. How are you?
Good morning, Lisa.
It's good
I
to
guess it's
see you.
afternoon now, though, isn't it? Or where
I
are you
guess
nowadays?
it is. Yeah, I'm in Atlanta right this minute, so it's noon.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, awesome.
So you guys ran a tournament in South Carolina in L3. It was a sectional L3, right?
Yeah, in North Carolina, yeah.
Oh, North Carolina. Sorry.
It's okay. It's
Um,
Charlotte. It's right on the border, either place.
yeah. And I am very curious to hear how it went because USTA recently kind of pushed the onus back to the sections to decide what to do with junior competition. And Southern section is offering events, and North Carolina offered an L3. So let's hear how it went.
Sure. We were actually the second event. There was a small L4 or L5 the previous weekend out in eastern North Carolina. I think they had maybe 60, 70 players. We had 175 in the L3 event. Um,
All age
and
groups?
all age groups, 10 through 18, and it went really well. We had a conference call about a month ago in preparing for this tournament, and the chair of our junior comp committee and the staff, we had this, Zoom conference just like we're doing right now, and they were saying, the parents are taking the risk, so it's, business as usual,
Mm-hmm.
and run it like you're supposed to. And I got off of that conference call and called the executive director of North Carolina Tennis, and I said, we need to talk a little bit. I said, I just don't think we can do that. I said, some sites you can, if you're at Cary Tennis Park where they're on 100 acres or whatever, you can spread out. The facility we use in Charlotte, Blakeney Racket and Swing Club, it's on about 8 or 9 acres. And I remember in years past in running this tournament, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, we'll have 500 people on the ground, and we can't do that.
Right.
As I told them, I was like, the last thing we want is for somebody to walk over their kid and see us among the people and go, yeah, that's not safe. I don't want to be part of it.
Right.
Or even worse, if somebody were to actually test positive this next week, even if they didn't get it there, and
Mm-hmm.
we didn't take the steps we should have taken to ensure social distancing and controlling everything, I was like, that's the worst thing we could have happen. I said, so we need to really overstep this. And so we went back to the drawing board and had some discussions about some possible formats and things we could do. And as we got closer to the deadline to really see how many players we had and how we could do this, we came out with a totally different format than anybody's probably used to, unless you play up in the Northeast on the indoor courts. We actually did what's called a timed format, a timed match format. And so the players using the new Match Tennis app that Heat Waters has come up with, we were testing
Let
that
me
for
just interrupt you one second.
sure.
So, for those not familiar with Match Tennis app, we've done a couple podcasts with Heath Waters and his wife, Lindsay Lee Waters, about the app. So, if you want to learn more about that, go check out our podcast archives and you'll find those podcasts. So,
So
sorry.
we were, no, that's perfect. So we were a pilot for that program, as was the Southern L3 in Columbus the week before. And basically what we do is the players will check in through the app. They have to register ahead of time. So once they're selected for the tournament, they fill out a registration on Match Tennis app. And then, we have all their contact information. They actually now get to do the waiver online through the app. No more
Nice.
paper copies at every tournament like we've done for forever. And so then that morning they check in when they're on site, and we call their match, send through the app what court to go to, and then when they're done with their match, they actually report the score through the app as well. So
And how do you verify the score?
each player is supposed to do it.
Okay.
So it worked out pretty well. Most times, of course, there's a few times we only got one score,
Hmm.
but most times we received the score from both players, and you just verify it to make sure.
Okay.
But what we did, so for example, let's say our first round was at 8 o'clock.
Hmm.
We made players be on site 15 minutes ahead and check in on the app.
Hmm.
We would then about 7:50, about 10 minutes before, send out the message for them to go to their court. They would go to their court. They were there about 4, 5, 6 minutes before the match time, and they would warm up until we got close to the match. we would give a 1 minute warning, in which case they should stop their warm up, figure out who's serving, get the balls ready, and play. And then we sound a horn at 8 a.m. and they start playing. An
Okay.
hour and 15 minutes later, with no warnings, we sound the horn again, and wherever they are, they stop. If they happen to be tied in games, then they would complete the game they're in to determine the winner. If one person was up, so one person could be up 8-7, um, and be down, or let's say they're down 8-7, and then
Mm-hmm.
they're up 40-15, but the horn sounds, match over.
Okay.
And then we had, of course, we give them 5 minutes to leave the court. We've got about a 5 minute window in between where we were sanitizing the score units that we our scores we were using,
Mm-hmm.
the gates, things like that, and then at that point we send the message out, and the next round came in. Um,
That's so cool. So did y'all have the balls waiting on the court for the players
we
too?
we did. We had our officials and tournament staff actually put the balls on the court.
Okay.
When they
Were
checked
they
in, they
Oh, I was just gonna say, did you use 1 can of balls per court, or did each player have their own balls? What'd y'all decide
we
about that?
I sent out before the tournament an email to all the players,
Mhm.
and there was a whole list of all the regulations we were following. Just so that everybody was on the same page. It was on the
Mhm.
tournament website as well. They could only have one representative with them, like what they're going to do at the nationals.
Mhm.
They could have the whole family, but the family had to sit in the car, and only one person could get out of the car and
Okay.
be on the site. Um, they had to bring their own chairs. We
Mhm.
had signs on every court designating where player A and player B was,
Mhm.
where they were supposed to set up. Player A is on the top of the draw line, player B was on the bottom for each match. We had designated areas that the representative with them could sit to watch the match.
Okay.
Um, and um, and so basically, I mean, it was great. It worked out really, really well. The parents and the North Carolina staff was here to kind of evaluate how it went and talk to a bunch of parents. And most of the parents really liked the format. They liked the fact that they knew when they were going to play, they knew when they were done. So many times at tournaments you have to check in an hour ahead or 30 minutes, and
Right.
then you're an hour late going on, and so it's a long, long process, and you're there all day, and this time they were able to come, play, leave, and go home. And parents really, really liked they could count on what they were doing instead of making an entire day of it.
Right. Oh, you didn't answer my balls question. Did they have 1
I'm
can
sorry,
too?
sorry, my fault.
That's okay.
Feel like I'm in a presidential debate. I just avoided that one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
sorry.
very clever of you.
No, we told them that they had to request it when they checked in. So when they checked
Oh,
in to their match tennis app, then they would also send a text saying, "Hey, I want to have a second can of balls on my court."
okay.
And so if either player requested it, we put it out there. I would say out of the whole weekend, only about 10% of the matches actually requested an extra can of balls, which
Mhm.
really surprised me. I thought that number would be over 50%,
Yeah.
but it was really low. It was only about 10% that requested it.
Okay. Interesting. And you had all age groups at the event?
We did. We had tens all the way through 18s.
Okay.
The
Boys
tens
and
actually,
girls?
boys and girls.
Singles
Uh,
only or doubles too?
no singles only, no doubles.
Okay. Okay.
Um, we did. We did only do an hour of playtime for the tens, and then we did an hour and 15 minutes for the other age division
Okay.
as part of the time format.
Mhm.
So, like I said, it went really well. The other thing we did is we did draws of 8. So, for example, in the boys 14s, we had 24, I think it was 28 players. So
Mhm.
we had 3 draws of 8 and then 4 alternates. And
Okay.
so by doing the draw of 8, they only played one day.
Mhm.
So we did a compass draw. Everybody got 3 matches, win or lose, and they were only on site for one day. So we ran the tournament for 3 full days, and you were only there for the one day, and then you knew exactly what times you were playing and for how long. So it was pretty structured, um, and it was great. It worked out really well. There was tons of social distancing, very few people on site. We have 10 courts at Blakeney, and you're talking about that you've got 20 players on the court and 20 representatives around and in staff. So there's no more
Mhm.
than maybe 30, 35 people on the entire campus. Where a year ago in this tournament you would have had 200 or 300.
Right. And what was the feedback from the players themselves? Did they like that timed format or did it freak them out?
Um, we only received two complaints the whole weekend. One complaint was, well, my son was down 11-10 and he was up 40-15, so we don't like the format.
Yeah,
I guarantee you if they had won, they probably would have liked the format.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and then the other one, there was a player that got beat. I think it was like 23-2. But the player started tanking after about 30 minutes. They got down 6-2, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, it's 17-2, and they
Mhm.
thought we should have a mercy rule. So those were the only two negatives the whole weekend. Otherwise, everybody liked it, whether they won or lost. I mean, they understand the rules, and they understood that, you know, okay, great. Even if I lose, it is what it is. And, so it went really, really well.
And the complaints came from the parents, not the players?
Um, Well, I mean, I didn't exactly talk to all the players, but that's what I heard from the parents
Okay.
who made a comment.
So, I mean, it's, kind of a typical junior tennis situation where the kids are usually okay.
Yeah,
it's it's those of us in the parental role that tend to get our feathers ruffled when things don't go as we expect or want them to. Although it sounds like you laid everything out very clearly ahead of time. People knew exactly what they were signing on for, and they got what they were promised,
yeah,
which sounds like, to me, I'm always hesitant when we start messing around with formats and scoring and all that. But given the situation we're in right now, given the fact that kids have been home since March, they are so sick of being in the house. We've got to give them a healthy way to get back outside, back to playing, back to competing. And I think this notion of a timed match makes a lot of sense because it allows you to control the flow of the crowds in and out of the facility, as you said. And so you never had more than 40, 50 people at any one time on site, and you were able to fully control that through the messaging in the app. And to me, that makes great sense. I love that idea.
like I said, it was. We talked about different formats. We talked about short sets. We talked, and as I said with short sets, I've seen short sets last 30 minutes. I've
Sure.
seen them go 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
You still can't control that, and
Right.
the time format is where you can really control the flow in and out of the facility. And as you said, in this day and time of where we are right now, that's the number one concern. If you can get to play and it's a fair format and you can control the environment, that's what we were looking for. And like I said, overall, it was extremely positive, the response we received. Matter of fact, so much that we're going to be using that time match format, I think, going forward in North Carolina with several of our tournaments. Maybe
Interesting.
like all the levels 3, 4, and 5 going forward.
Interesting.
Um, because,
Did you
again, it was very safe. It was so much safer than a normal tournament with everybody around. And as you all know,
Yeah.
when you're running a tournament, the one thing you can't control is how long the matches go.
Right.
And and if you get competitive matches, which is what you want, the matches go long. And next thing you know, you're running behind, and everybody gets frustrated. They're on site
Yeah.
forever. It's taking forever. So, that was the number one objective, was to be able to control that flow, and we did it. It may not everybody's going to be happy, but I thought, from the response we've heard in North Carolina, it was about 95% positive.
Did you have any cases of kids running out the clock?
Um, I had two that I had to deal with. I had one
What
who
does
kept
that mean?
asking.
What does that mean you had to deal with them?
Well, I had one player that kept asking how much time is left, how much time is left,
Mm,
and I just said, look, when the buzzer sounds, you're done. We're not giving warnings. You need to keep playing in the pace of play you need to be doing. We had a player receive a time violation warning as part of that, because they were up 8-7 and they're trying to slow it down.
yeah.
We had another individual who we had several issues with in that first match. Um, that whether it wasn't really the line calls, it was more the how they handled the line calls.
Mm,
Disrespectful to the opponent. We're on clay courts. We used to put the swiper mark away before it could be challenged. And so,
Yeah.
I basically brought that player aside at the end of the match, and they were stalling actually at the end. I brought that player aside at the end of the match and just said, I just want you to be aware the rest of your matches today, there's no warning. That's like you're getting coded from the get go.
Mm.
It's not so much any of the calls. I didn't see the calls, but it's, you're not acting in a sportsmanlike manner, and you're going to get called out for it the rest of the day, 100%.
Love it.
So
I love that. I love the way you run your events, and I love the way you interact with the kids. I mean, seriously. And, it sounds like you laid everything out very clearly. The kids knew what the rules were. Using the app, of course, makes so much sense when you don't have to have a tournament desk. You don't have to have that face-to-face interaction between the kids and the tournament staff, on an ongoing basis over the course of the tournament. Being able to get the age group complete in one day and then people go home, that's awesome. Did you find that people were traveling from distances to come play, or was it mostly local folks that showed up?
it was mostly North Carolina, but we had several from South Carolina. I think we had one from Virginia, one from West Virginia. Um, but for the most part, it was North Carolina players. But we had several from Raleigh,
Mhm.
Greensboro, Wilmington. So it wasn't just a Charlotte area tournament.
Right.
And and I knew that since we wouldn't have that interaction with the players and the parents like we normally do, that's part of the reason we laid it out. I mean, I
Mhm.
want to say we had about 3 pages worth of information that we put on the web page, and then I sent it an email. I did a FAQ, about what happens here, what happens there,
Mhm.
because I felt like I learned a long time ago. I've been doing this. My first tournament I ran was 1988.
Oh my gosh.
So I learned a long time ago that the more you plan and execute ahead of the tournament, the smoother the tournament is.
Right.
The less you do that, then it's going to be hell during the weekend of the tournament.
Yeah, it's a free for
So,
all.
oh, absolutely. So we outlaid everything. For example, bathroom breaks.
Mhm.
We limited them to one bathroom break during the time match,
Okay.
and a maximum of 3 minutes. Now, the one thing where I differed, and we announced it ahead of time from the USTA rules, is that if they were late getting back, then they would have first would be a warning, and then every 25 seconds would be 1 point.
Hmm.
Normally you would do the warning and then you go straight to the code. It's point
Right.
getting the ball.
Yep.
But I felt if somebody really had in a situation that they needed more than 3 minutes, they could buy time by giving up points as opposed to in 2 minutes you're defaulted from the match.
Mhm.
And so that was one deviation from the actual rules that we did again put out there. And we did not allow them to take a bathroom break in the last 15 minutes.
Hmm.
So that way somebody could not get up a game and then say, okay, I'm going to take a break and
Yeah.
install this out.
Install.
So,
Did any did anything happen that you did not anticipate?
yeah, rain on the last day for the last round of matches. We didn't even get to play them. So,
Yeah.
but for the most part, it went smooth and um, it was great. Everybody seemed to really like it. Everybody was positive. So it was fun. It was good to do something different a little bit too.
Yeah, I'm sure the kids appreciated that too. It's just not the same old, and, it's one more format that tournament directors can incorporate as more tournaments start to come back on the calendar. And now, was your event, it was USTA sanctioned event because it was a
Mm-hmm.
Southern Level 3, right? So USTA was
North Carolina level 3.
sorry, North Carolina Level 3. So USTA was totally fine with you using these rules that were a little bit different from the norm.
Well, we had to, yes. I mean, North Carolina they approved everything we did, the junior comp committee, and then I guess it was a Southern level 5 is what it also counted as well.
Okay, gotcha.
So, and the one thing we did is the finals and the third, fourth playoff, we did go back to the regular format. Since we didn't have any other matches at the end of the day in that last round behind it, we did allow them to play a regular format for those matches at the end of the day.
So 2 out of 3 sets, no time limit.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. So, I mean, it sounds really cool. And congratulations for getting an event on the calendar, executing it. Sorry about the rain, but summer in the South, that's just to be expected.
Absolutely.
you didn't anticipate it, but you kind of knew that it was a possibility.
I'm just glad it wasn't more rain.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So this whole return to play idea, we're again starting to see more and more junior events come on the calendar. We're seeing. I interviewed, gosh, was it yesterday? Now I'm so lost. I think it was yesterday. I interviewed Ben Van Hout about a series of events that he and some of his buddies have coordinated. It's a college team tennis tournament where they have qualifying for junior players to come in, and then they like draft teams at the beginning of the event
Mhm.
and play. It's such a cool format. So we've got that going on. We've got the ITA summer circuit happening. We've got UTR events happening all over the place. And now USTA sanctioned events starting to come back on the calendar. What are you hearing, Scott? Because I know you've got your ear to the ground with all of this in terms of opening the rankings back up for USTA. We didn't really have an end date for that last time we talked.
Yeah, the my understanding is USTA National is freezing the rankings until September 1st.
Okay,
Now, Southern Tennis Association or USTA Southern and USTA North Carolina are updating theirs every so often. North
interesting.
Carolina updated theirs June 15th. Now, normally your points are only on your record for the 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
in each of those.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina is keeping any points back to March of 2019. So,
Okay.
like, for example, if they run the standings today, then it would carry back to March of 2019. So you're not penalized for not playing, but it does allow to capture the points of people who are starting to play again in some tournaments. They have a chance to improve upon it.
So they're still just taking the top six, though, right?
Sure, always,
But
yeah,
but looking back to March 2019 as opposed to looking back to June 2019.
correct, correct.
Okay. Okay. And
That's my understanding of what's happening.
and do you know how, if at all, that's going to impact selection into national hard courts? It's still just going to be on the national standing list?
Well, I mean, I haven't heard exactly what they're doing for the national selection. Typically each section has a quota,
Right.
and then they have so many off the national list, and then they start filling in after that. They have so many wild cards they hold out. So, like for example, I think because the draw is only 128, I think Southern's
Hmm.
quota is only 12 now. Go to the national hard court, so they'll still
Okay.
base it off of Southern's standings, or Southern will have that quota at 12, is my understanding. Now, whether Southern is going to use the latest updated standings to determine that, or whether they're going to go back to March when they were frozen, that I
Mm,
haven't heard. I would assume they
okay.
would use the latest, but that's making an assumption, and you know what they say when you assume. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but I would be certain that USDA Southern, if it doesn't have it up on its website, they will be putting up on their website exactly what they're going to use to make those quota determinations.
Okay. And what else regarding return to play? What else are you seeing, hearing? What do we need to know?
Well, I think the most interesting thing is that they're trying to get tournaments going where they can. And when I say where they can, there's a lot of facilities in North Carolina that are open. For example, one of the facilities we normally use for the tournament we did this last weekend, Providence Country Club. It's open, it's busy, but they will allow no guests.
Mm,
So therefore, they can't host a tournament. They have their own tournament they were supposed to host, I think, in July, but again, they can't have guests now. And our
okay.
governor has extended the phase 2 for 3 more weeks, and so that changed a lot of it. And so, for example, on a given weekend in North Carolina, you have between 6 and 8 junior tournaments at the different levels.
Hmm.
We had one 2 weeks ago. We had two tournaments this last weekend, an L5 and an RL3. There's not one single tournament this coming weekend.
It was a
There are
holiday.
two, but there's normally 6 of them on that
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah.
The next weekend, there's I think only one tournament available. I mean, and so unfortunately, you know, the USTA associations are at the mercy of what the facilities are saying.
Hmm.
And so you're seeing a lot of tournaments canceled or postponed the next year. Um, and I think that's going to be the biggest issue. For example, we were actually looking. you mentioned a team event. We were actually looking at doing a team USDA sanctioned tournament event where we would have teams of three in an age division. So, like, boys 14s, if we had 24 players, we'd have 8 teams of three. We would waterfall them into the different teams, and then they would compete as a team in a timed match against another team where every game counted. So, of the
That
three
sounds
matches,
fun.
yeah, playing for an hour and every game counts. So even if
Yeah.
you're getting killed, if you can win a game or two, you can help your team win.
Right.
But it's finding a location to do it. The club we just hosted this at Blakeney, their members are, their courts are packed. All the
Mm,
facilities in North Carolina, from what I'm hearing of the tennis professionals, they're very busy. They're teaching a ton of lessons. People are wanting to get out and play. It's just that it's so isolated because nobody wants to have outsiders come in and then something happens.
right.
And so it's making it challenging for leagues. USDA leagues are trying to start back for adults,
Yeah.
and they're running into issues with that because we don't want an outside team to come to our facility to play a match.
Right.
And I think we're going to be dealing with that for a little while. I think that Cary Tennis Park isn't even open yet. 30 something courts, public facility, they have
Mm,
nothing going on. They are shut down. And then the ones that are open, they don't want guests. So it's
yeah.
everybody's really hoping, I think, in North Carolina at least to go to phase three, that then more of these facilities will start to have events. Uh, but if that doesn't happen, if the numbers keep going up and the governor keeps it shut down, it's going to go longer and longer.
Right. Hmm. It's tough times for everybody for sure.
It
Let's
is.
talk let's talk about especially tough times for college tennis and what's going on that front. I published an article. I used a lot
Yeah,
of information that you had provided to me, so thank you for that.
sure.
Um, I'm working on a follow-up piece now about the impact of what's happening in college tennis for junior tennis. But the reality is things are not looking great right this minute.
Well, I don't know. Remember last time we talked, there was a website, Matt Talk Online, that they were
Yeah,
keeping up with all the college sports. He has added a section for colleges
I saw
now
that that are
that are not going to
postponing.
play for this coming year.
Oh
So,
yeah.
and that has 247 programs on that list now that they're not canceling the program, but they're not going to play this coming academic year. There's 13 Division two institutions on there. It's mostly the California schools who have said they're only going to do online anyway. The state universities in California.
Mhm.
There's 6 Division three schools on there, 27 JUCOs, and an NAIA school. Um, my guess is there's a great it's online, it's on PBS. It's a guy named Scott Galloway. He's a marketing professor for NYU, and they interviewed him about higher education and what's happening and that sort of stuff. He called colleges the walking dead. He said that right now there's 4,500 colleges and universities, from community colleges up to Harvard in this country, and his expectation is that 1,000 to 2,000 of those will be gone in 5 to 10 years.
Oh my goodness.
The institutions, not college athletics, the
Right.
actual
The actual
colleges
school.
will shut down. He says that the schools that are what you call a tier two or tier three academic reputation, that
Mhm.
have a high price tag and don't have a very high enrollment to be able to withstand this, he said they are in trouble, and they're going to be struggling. It's a very interesting interview that they did with him. It's about 17 minutes long, uh,
Okay.
that people can go and look and watch. And it's true. If you think about some of the things that are going on just with academic institutions in general, here we had across the country, um, where we went from brick and mortar institutions to forcing those students to now do an online environment this last
Mhm.
spring.
Right.
But now we've also made online education easier. They're now used to it. Online education was already increasing every year. Matter of fact, I think it was the statistic is like 36% of college students now actually do nothing but an online environment.
Interesting.
And of course, that's up significantly since 2012. Uh,
And I gotta say though, that's really disturbing to me because While I understand the convenience of online education and the lower cost to the institution for providing online classes, there is a social, a developmental, maturation component involved in having to get up, get dressed, get to class, sit in class, pay attention, take notes, all of those things that help our young people, go into their next phase of development and maturation, that
Hmm.
I'm really scared what's going to happen to this current crop of college age kids that are missing that piece of things, and the kids that aren't going to move out of their parents' house because they can do online school just as easily from their parents' home, you know a
Living in
thousand
the
miles
basement.
away, right? Or not even, but it's
Right.
still having mom and dad provide the roof over their head, all their meals, doing
Right.
their laundry, all of these skills that college can really help our kids learn and move into adulthood. I'm a little concerned about that.
Well, and I agree with you. There's obviously a developmental situation there, and people say the same thing about parents who homeschool their kids.
Right.
With the uh, junior tennis over the last 20 years, the proliferation of homeschooling because you can't attend a normal school and play on the national level because you miss school so much. They became homeschool, and they talked about that lack of development of social skills.
Hmm.
That being said, though, those same families also are looking at I'm paying 40, 50, $60,000 a year for that experience you're talking about,
Yeah.
and now I'm not getting it.
Hmm.
Now I'm pretty much getting put into an online program, and I don't want to pay that same dollar figure.
Yeah.
A guy that I graduated college with is in the admissions industry, college admissions. He works for
Hmm.
a consulting company,
Okay.
and they work. I think it's like 90 something percent of his clients are small private institutions around the country. And he gave me an example today. They have a goal of 350 deposits for the fall, and they're 120 short today.
Wow.
And he said that's not the norm, but that's just an example. And he said,
Hmm.
you know, most people are pretty close. Most of the colleges and institutions are pretty close to what they're trying to budget.
Okay.
But the problem is there's so much uncertainty. In years past, if a kid put a deposit down, it was
They're coming.
99% they're going.
Yeah.
Right now, he says it's about 50-50. He said
Really?
because there's so many people that, yeah, they're doing it, they're holding their spot, but they also want to sit back and see, okay, are you going to go back to online classes for this fall? Because if you are,
Mhm.
I'm not going to pay what you're going to require me to pay to go there. Or are you going to cut my tennis program or my soccer program, and then I don't get that experience? I'm not
Right.
willing to pay. So there's unfortunately a lot of uncertainty out there, and I really think at the end of the day, when we get to next fall, we're going to look at somewhere between 200 and 250 college tennis programs that are gone out of the 1,700 that are out there right
Mhm.
now. I hate that. I don't want to say that. Um, but when you think about that, all of these small individual schools, they're on a July 1st budget year, which means that their new budget starts tomorrow, which
Right.
means that they have been planning that budget for the last 30 days. And they're planning that budget based on deposits that are a 50-50 chance. What's going to happen when they get to the first day of class and we find out that, wow, we're 15% short, we're 10% short, we're 5% short? Where's that $750,000 going to come from?
Yeah.
You know, Typically it's not going to be academics because that's why you're there.
Right.
It's gonna be college athletics. Or take the University of Buffalo, who is going to be playing. I think it's Ohio State, and they got a $1.8 million payout to play Ohio State. 10% of their athletic budget. What happens if that game doesn't happen?
Yeah.
It's just I hate to say it. It's unfortunate, and my guess is it's eventually going to get better. I really think when you talk to some of the junior coaches and you talk to um, you know the professionals in the industry and industry people, it is going to get better. You may see, I really think in 3 to 4 years, you're going to see college athletics where only basketball and football are actually getting the scholarships. I think you're going
Mm.
to see the non revenue sports go back to the period of the 1960s and 70s where, there's not the scholarship dollars for that. It's more of a Division III model. But that's, you still have the program, you still have the competition, but we're not doing the scholarships as part of it.
But
I think
what's
you'll
gonna happen with Title IX? How's that gonna impact for the women? If you still got football, which is all male,
right.
how are they gonna be in compliance with Title IX?
It's going to be a good question, and it's going to be interesting to see if they try to go back. The Division I institutions, particularly, if they try to go back and get that change. Back this spring, they petitioned the NCAA to get rid of the 16 minimum sport requirement to
Right,
be a Division I institution. The NCAA said no. Well, how's that going to play out? I mean, if they have no money to offer sports, how's that eventually going to play out? If you're a Power Five institution, or not a Power Five, but let's say a Group of Five,
mhm,
um, um, to use how they classify them, and you can't afford to put out there 16 different sports, even without scholarships. How's that going to work out? I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
there's obviously, as with anything, there's a lot of unknown here.
yeah,
So, um, I think that's why you see most of the institutions are looking to get back on campus this fall. They're planning for football, and I hope it all works out great. I mean, I hope everything just goes smoothly. I hope that, you know, the tennis tournament we just ran this last weekend, that we don't hear of anybody testing positive that played in it for the next two
right,
weeks. And, and I hope it goes great. Yeah, the worst thing that could happen is we get back to campus this fall and we get into September and all of a sudden there's a rash of
outbreaks,
cases that are all around colleges everywhere.
right.
And
Well, and
everybody,
we're already hearing of outbreaks at training camps, for
sure.
football teams, baseball team. I mean,
But the trick
you know,
is people also, the news is spatializes. As we talked about earlier,
right.
there's real news, there's fake news, and then there's the drama news.
Yeah,
And I mean seriously, and
right.
and I'm not
Let's
trying to
get a
say
rise out of people.
right, and here I am saying this about college tennis, and people are like, well, you're the drama king doing all this. Well, no, I'm not trying to say that. I just want people to think about some things.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to be. I really hope we don't lose 250 programs. I don't think we will. I think that's more of a worst case scenario. But unfortunately, it doesn't depend on my actions. It depends on these colleges and universities and
yeah,
athletic directors and the coaches. And Winthrop University, just as a side note, they're giving them a chance to try to save that program at Winthrop in Rockdale, South Carolina.
right.
So they're trying to raise money right now and see what they can do to repair the facility and keep that program, which is great. Um,
But we've
but
seen those efforts all summer, and we haven't
yeah,
seen one succeed yet, have we?
um, let's see. Alabama Huntsville was able to keep their hockey program. They did
Okay,
save that one.
okay,
Bowling. There was a program at Bowling Green. I can't remember which one it was, and they reversed that.
okay.
And then at Brown, I think it was track and field and something else they reversed. So there are some success stories, but um, the thing is when you talk about the news, COVID cases are going to show up on college campuses. It is going to happen. There is
Sure.
nothing any of us can do. And
Right.
what I hope is that people don't panic and start, okay, well, you're coming home, or
Yeah.
this and that and the other. And that's the thing is when I talk about drama news is that I just hope people will use their common sense to take the news and filter it the way that they need to really see it, because there's so many people out there with Facebook and Instagram, and you know you can go find whatever it is you want to find and post it and recirculate it out there.
Yeah, for sure. And I
So
think, what we're learning about COVID-19 is for a large percentage of the population, if you contract COVID-19, you're going to feel sick for a few days and then you're going to get well. And we aren't real sure what the long term side effects of having COVID-19. We're hearing about some lung damage and we're hearing about other internal organs having long term effects of the illness, even when you feel okay. But that's still so new and it's changing every single day.
yeah,
Um, so I think that's part of it. I think the other piece of it, though, is there is a segment of the population that is considered to be high risk in that if they contract COVID-19, they are the ones who are going to wind up needing hospitalization because their bodies, their immune systems aren't equipped to handle the virus. So, if you have somebody like that in your family, or that you're around, or let's say you're a college professor and your spouse is considered high risk, or one of
Hmm.
your children at home is considered high risk, that's where things start to get tricky in my mind. Like for me, I feel like I'm a healthy individual. If I contracted COVID, I'd probably feel crappy for a few days and then I'd get better and I'd go on with my life. But um, I have people in my family that have immune issues, and so I would feel awful if I brought that to them and they got sick as a result. So that's where, like you're saying, people have to use their common sense. But at the same time, we certainly don't want to say, oh, it's fine to go back to school. And yeah, there's going to be cases of COVID-19 on campus, but it's young people, and young people typically are having pretty good outcomes with this. So we don't need to panic over it. We might not need to panic, but I think we still are in a place where we just don't have the information, and we certainly don't have a cure, and we certainly don't have a vaccine. And until
Right.
those things are in place, we've got to take the precautions. I mean,
And don't be wrong, I'm not saying don't take precautions. I
no,
mean,
I
you know,
know.
at
As
Methodist right
evidenced
now,
by the event you
it,
ran last weekend, you are on top of that stuff. I know where you sit with all of this. I get it.
it, yeah, and, you know, at Methodist, I mean, they're working on a protocol right now for us in classes when I go back to teaching classes in another month of how that should happen. You know,
Hmm.
what's the maximum number of students I can have in a certain classroom, each classroom.
Right.
Um, it's just like life. I mean, we all have to protect ourselves, and we all have to, take the things, or take these precautions. It's just different precautions than we've been used to.
Yeah.
You know, um, you know, washing your hands. I mean, anytime you go to the restroom, you're supposed to wash your hands. I think we're maybe finding out how many people in our country don't.
Yeah.
But but there's certain things that you should be doing to protect yourself, and it's and I think that when I say don't panic, um, you know, as I mentioned in that last podcast, I mean, we all are going to have to make decisions of what events we decide to participate in or not participate in.
Yeah.
That's the reason why this tournament this last weekend, we took all of these precautions that were, you know, it was a good experience, but we did things that were unorthodox. We did things that were not the norm because I didn't want to have somebody walk up, park in the parking lot, and see this throng of people and go, yeah, that's too much for them.
Yeah, not
Um,
not not happening.
yeah, I mean, I was at the beach with my mom and stepfather a couple of weeks ago, and there was a restaurant we had reservations at, and as we walked towards it, we could see there were so many people just waiting, and we were like, yeah, no, not going to be part of that.
Yeah,
So we're all going to have to make those kind of decisions,
sure.
and and what I hope, I guess my point about talking about college tennis, kind of going back to that for just a second, is I want people to understand what a time period it is for colleges and universities right now. And it doesn't always have to do with the college tennis program. It's not that the athletic director is being the evil Darth Vader and is just against your program. It's they are actually going to be uh, dealing with some things they've never dealt with before.
Hmm.
They've never dealt with, you know, fewer number of people coming out of high school to go to college, fewer number of people deciding to spend the money to go to college. Now you have online that is becoming an even more and more viable option. And, if we had done this 50 years ago and we shut down for, for this pandemic 50 years ago, colleges would probably have gone through it. It'd have been
Hmm.
fine. You didn't have the online option,
Right.
and so I think it's going to be a game changer. And anybody who sits here today and says, "Oh, we're going to be the same in 5 years as we are right now as a society," I just don't think we're going to be. I think there'll be a lot of it that is, but I think there's certain aspects that won't be. So,
Okay. Well, like I
uh,
said, it's a fluid situation. You can't make plans today for next month. You got to take it
yeah,
day by day, week by week, and just kind of see what's going on. We're hearing our elected officials changing policies every day. Things get
yeah,
shifted around. things open, then they close again, and then they open, they close again, and what's happening in one state may look very different from what's happening in an adjoining state. So I think it's really important that everybody just kind of keep an open mind, don't get
Yeah,
locked into plans. I would say, if you're planning to fly to go to a junior tennis tournament, maybe that's not the best idea right now. Maybe keep it within driving distance so that you can change your plans last minute and not have an economic impact of doing that. Although most of the airlines are being pretty good about refunding and not charging
hmm
penalties and all of that. But still, I mean, I think it's really important that, we take this day by day. Scott, let's end this on something positive. When's
sure.
your next event that you're doing, and how do people get signed up?
Um, well, a couple things. Talking about the tournament this last weekend, I do want to make one comment. The parents and players overall were such a positive part of that process. That's part of the reason it went so well.
That's great
You
to
know, they
hear.
understood. Yeah, I mean, they understood that we were doing things different. They understood why we were doing. They understand what we were trying to accomplish. And the Match Tennis app is fantastic. I had a conference call with Keith for about an hour last night of some things to try to help them change it from a functionality standpoint that will make
Mhm.
it easier for tournaments to use, considering that I guess it's tomorrow it goes live with tournaments across the country that can use it. And there were a couple of things in there that's going to make it even easier to use for parents and players. But the parents and players, that's what made it this weekend. They were so
Good to hear.
positive. They followed all the rules that we have. We didn't have somebody, just being a real pain and going, well, this is the way I want to do it, and that's what makes junior tennis too.
Sure.
As far as the next events that I'm doing, gosh, I don't know if I have another USTA tournament for a while. The team event I was talking about, we're trying to get that to fly if we can find a facility to host it. That's really kind of the key
Okay.
to everything. So I'll be down in Orlando in a couple of weeks to do some stuff with the USPTA as far as the new certifications for tennis pros, and then we're getting ready to come back to class. So we'll be back
You're a
in
busy
class in
guy.
about a month.
So if people are interested in this team event, how do they kind of stay on top of the developments to find out if it's happening, and if it is happening, how they sign up and all that? Is there
Sure,
a
USTA North Carolina is doing a great job of using social media to get the word out.
Okay,
Every tournament, they're actually putting the winners out there in the social media posts. They're putting social media posts out for the upcoming tournaments that are going on.
great.
If you go to Tennis Link and look at the junior tournaments in North Carolina, you will see them all listed, and they either say postponed or canceled, or so it's just finding the ones that don't have those two words next to it, and
Yeah.
uh, unfortunately, that's the best way to find out.
Okay. So onus is on the parents to keep an eye out for what's going on. Kids, if you're watching this and you're looking for these events, keep talking with your friends. And if one of you hears something, make sure you share it with your
Yeah,
buddies so y'all can all get out and play. And Scott, I just want to thank you for being so honest and so forthcoming always with the information that you have. You are one of my great resources, and I rely
thank you.
on you a lot because you're at the table for these conversations, and we don't all get to be at the table. So it's nice that you're willing to come on this platform and others and share what you're learning. So thank you for
Sure.
that.
And the one lastly, when you talk about colleges and college recruiting,
Hmm.
um, I would certainly say to parents and players right now, really reach out to colleges. The dead period for NCAA was actually extended till the end of August now for Division
Yeah,
One. I think you're going to see a lot of focus on the showcases through the fall that are put on around the country. A lot of college coaches that I've heard from have said, we're really going to depend on that for recruiting for next fall because we're not getting to go see them play tournaments. And if you can't get to a college showcase, then reach out to the coaches. The coaches are going to be looking. They're going to be busier than ever right now, dealing with everything. And so you're really going to have to recruit the program as opposed to the program recruiting you. If there's ever a time for it, now's the time.
well,
And
and
then one of the
one of the
sorry,
things
go
we
ahead.
talked about with Ben yesterday was if you are a junior player and you're playing in events where current college players are also in the event,
Hmm.
That's another really good opportunity for you to form a relationship with a player currently on the team. That player can then go back to his or her coach and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
I played against this kid or I met this kid and I think they'd make a great addition to our team and you ought to really look at them." So there are ways around the dead period that are legal that fall
Right.
within the NCAA guidelines but still allow you to have some personal contact with members of the actual team. You may not get to have the coach there, but quite honestly, sometimes having the team members vouch for you is even more valuable.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, it's like life. I mean, it's who you know. It's not just what you know; it's who you know.
Yeah,
And I agree. I think that's a big key. And the ITA summer circuit, for example,
right.
used to just be for college players, umpteen years ago. Then they started letting junior players in, which at that point it became a really good mix
Mhm.
of college players and junior players. Now it seems there's almost very few of the bigger college players playing. It's more the junior players that play that.
Yeah,
Um, but I agree. I think developing those relationships is critical. And the other thing I would suggest is the players when if they're doing this, they're going to want to have a video of them playing.
for sure.
And if there's one piece of advice on a video I would give, turn the camera on, play a set, turn the camera off. Don't do your greatest hits.
Yeah.
When I was a college coach, one of the things I always laughed at was I would get a video of a player and they'd hit one forehand or two forehands and then there's a clip. And then there's now they hit
Yeah.
another forehand and then there's a cut. Okay. How many forehands did you have to hit to show me there was 10 good ones?
Right.
Was it 10 or was it 50,000?
Right.
And college coaches know that. They're smarter than that. And
Yeah,
what they're looking for is just turn the camera on and let it run. They want to see how you react between points as much as they want to see what forehand you get.
for sure.
They want to see what happens to you when you get down 3-1 as much as if you happen to be beating somebody 3-1.
Yeah,
And that's the best thing you can do. And when I've advised players I've coached going to college, let's say that we do that. They play a set, we have the video camera on, and it doesn't go well. They get beat 6-1. Okay,
mhm,
great. Then do it again, but do the whole thing again.
yeah.
And that's the critical part of it.
Well, and I wanna say too, our new podcast that released today, with Colin McAtee is on a
Mhm.
new app called Productive Recruit, and it's actually a way for junior players to put the whole recruiting process in an app in the palm of their hand, and
Oh, nice.
they can link to videos in their online profile in the app. So, for those who have, junior players who are at that recruiting age, have a listen to this week's podcast because I thought it was really clever what Colin did. Colin is not a tennis player. He was a college soccer player at University of Michigan, but soccer is also a non-revenue sport. So there's a lot of crossover between soccer and tennis. And that this app that he's developed is really great. And it's gonna be a great tool for kids moving forward.
And one other piece of advice I throw out there: anybody who, let's say they were looking to play college tennis, but maybe they ended up going to a school and not playing college tennis
Mhm.
because they didn't feel like they could make the team. If there was ever a fall season to reach out to the tennis coach at the institution you are going to, it would be this fall because
Yeah,
the Office of Immigration, there's going to be a lot of college tennis players who are not going to be able to get into the country this fall to go play on college teams that those
yeah,
coaches were planning to be playing.
yeah.
And you're going to see a lot of coaches who, over these next 30 days, are really struggling to try to fill the last hole or two on their team. So,
Mhm.
some opportunities there.
There you go. Great advice. Well, Scott Handback, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so
Lisa,
much.
thank you so much. Enjoyed
Yep.
it.
All right. Have a great rest of your week.
You do the same.
All right. Bye, y'all.